My parents abandoned me on my wedding day, leaving 2 empty chairs in the front row while they stayed home to comfort my perfect sister. Not because she was sick, not because of an emergency, but because I had the audacity to get engaged before her, and they decided my happiness was less important than protecting Molin's feelings about not being the first to marry. I stood at that altar on June 15th, looking at those empty mother of the bride and father of the bride cards, while 300 guests witnessed my public humiliation. My own father, who was supposed to walk me down the aisle, chose to skip my wedding entirely. When David's uncle stepped in to fill that role, I could hear the whispers behind me. Everyone knew. Everyone saw exactly how little I mattered to my own family. But here's what really got to me. My mom actually called me that morning to make sure I understood their position. She told me they couldn't attend because it would be too hard on Molin to watch her older sister get married first. Then she had the nerve to ask if we were still planning to send them photos from the reception, as if they deserved a front row seat to my happiness after publicly declaring I didn't deserve their support. My perfect sister got everything she wanted that day. She got our parents' full attention, their validation, and the satisfaction of knowing that even on my wedding day, she came first. They probably spent the evening reassuring her that her time would come, that she'd have the perfect wedding she deserved. What they didn't realize was that their cruel little power play was about to destroy everything they'd built. 3 months later, their ideal family image finally collapsed. And this time, I had a front row seat to watch it all fall apart. To understand how we got here, you need to know how my family actually works. The rule was simple. Molin's needs always came first. It didn't matter that I'm 2 years older or that I'd been working in tech for a decade while building a stable life. What mattered was that Molin was the shiny one, the senior executive with the corner office and the salary that made my parents beam with pride at family gatherings. I'm a mid-level software developer. Good job. Steady income, nothing flashy. Molin works for a Fortune 500 company pulling in 6 figures and gets invited to those corporate galas where she can name-drop executives. Guess which daughter gets brought up in conversations with the neighbors? When my mom talks about her girls, it's always, Molin just got another promotion, and Rebecca's doing well too. Always the afterthought, always the footnote to my perfect sister's success story. The pattern started early, but it crystallized when I graduated college. I'd worked 3 part-time jobs to pay for school, maintained a 3.7 GPA, and landed my first developer position right after graduation. Huge deal for me. We planned a family dinner to celebrate. 2 days before Molin called crying because she had to give an important presentation at work and needed family support for practice. Suddenly, my graduation dinner became Molin's prep session. Mom said we could celebrate me anytime, but Molin's career was at a critical juncture. I learned early that I would never be sufficient in their eyes. But the real turning point came when I met David. He's a project manager at a different tech company, steady kind, the type of guy who actually listens when you talk. We met at a conference 2 years ago, and for the first time I had someone who saw me as the priority. David came to family dinners and watched the dynamics with fresh eyes. At first he tried to give my parents the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it, he'd say. Maybe it's just habit. Then he witnessed my 30th birthday party, or rather the cancellation of my 30th birthday party. 3 hours before guests were supposed to arrive, Molin called sobbing because her boyfriend had broken up with her. She needed her family. The party was off. Mom spent the entire evening at Molin's apartment, while I sat in a decorated house with a cake for 30 and no celebration. David saw things I'd normalized for years. That's when David said something that changed everything. Rebecca, normal families don't work this way. Fast forward to October 12th, 2023. David proposed to me on a weekend trip to the mountains, and I was over the moon. We called my parents that evening to share the news. I expected excitement, maybe some tears of joy. Questions about the ring or the proposal story. Instead, I got a 5-second pause before my mom said, "Oh, well that's nice, honey. Have you thought about timing?" Not congratulations. Not, "We're so happy for you." Not a single question about David, or how he proposed, or whether I was happy. Mom's first question wasn't about our happiness. It was about timing. Specifically, how this would affect Molen. Dad chimed in with concerns about family logistics, and whether we'd considered that Molen might have her own announcements coming soon. Which was ridiculous, because as I mentioned, she didn't even have a boyfriend. Then came the real kicker. Mom asked if we'd set a date yet, and when I mentioned we were thinking about June, she got quiet. Really quiet. Finally, she said, "Well, you know how these things work in families, Rebecca. There are traditions, expectations. Maybe you should talk to your sister first before making any firm plans." Like I needed my younger sister's permission to get married. The call ended with them saying they'd process the news and get back to us. David and I just sat there looking at each other. He'd never seen anything like it. Most parents jump up and down when their kid gets engaged. Mine acted like I'd announced a minor inconvenience. But if I thought my parents' reaction was bad, I wasn't prepared for Molen's. She called me 2 hours later, and she was furious. Not happy for me. Not even pretending to be excited. Furious. She started talking about birth order and family traditions, and how this isn't how it's supposed to work. According to my perfect sister, the older daughter getting married first was only acceptable if the younger daughter was already engaged, or at least seriously dating someone. She actually asked me to postpone my wedding. The following weekend, my parents invited David and me over for Sunday dinner. I should have known something was up when Mom set the dining room table instead of eating in the kitchen like we normally did. This was formal. This was an intervention. Dad started with the soft approach. "Rebecca, honey, we've been thinking about your announcement, and we're concerned you might be rushing into things." Mom nodded along, cutting her roast beef with surgical precision. "It's not that we're not happy for you," she continued, "but there are family considerations here. Image matters. What will people think when the younger daughter isn't even dating anyone seriously, and the older one is already walking down the aisle?" Then came the guilt tactics. Mom reminded me how much they'd sacrificed for both their daughters, how important family harmony was, how weddings were about bringing families together, not dividing them. "Molen is really struggling with this, Rebecca. She feels like you're abandoning family tradition. Is your timeline really more important than your sister's emotional well-being?" David tried to interject with some logic about how it was our relationship and our decision, but Dad shut him down fast. "Son, you're new to this family. You don't understand how we do things." The condescension was thick. They painted me as selfish for not considering Molen's feelings, for putting my own happiness above family unity. They said I was being selfish. But here's where David became my lifeline. When we got back to our apartment, he sat me down and said exactly what I needed to hear. "Rebecca, I've been to family dinners with normal families. I've seen how parents react when their kids get engaged. This isn't it." He started listing off things he'd observed over the past year, how they always asked about Molen first, how they'd changed the subject when I shared good news about work, how they'd never once asked him about his family or his job, but spent 20 minutes grilling him about his salary when they thought I wasn't listening. "Your parents don't see you," he said. "They see Molen's supporting cast, and they're so used to you playing that role that they can't handle you stepping into the spotlight. He was right. For the first time in my life, I was the one making a big announcement, having the big moment, getting the attention. And they couldn't stand it. David said something that changed everything. What if we just don't ask for permission anymore? That's when it clicked. I'd been asking for their approval my entire life, waiting for them to see my worth, trying to earn their pride. But what if I stopped? What if I just lived my life and let them deal with their own feelings about it? So I made the call. I told my parents we'd set the date for June 15th, 2024. I was calm, clear, and final. David and I are getting married on June 15th. We'd love to have you there, but we understand if you choose not to come. I wasn't asking for permission. I wasn't negotiating. I was informing them. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like forever. Then Dad's voice came through, cold and measured. That's when they gave me an ultimatum. Rebecca, if you insist on this June date, your mother and I won't be attending your wedding. Dad's voice was flat, matter-of-fact, like he was reading me a grocery list. We can't support a decision that shows such disrespect for family values and your sister's feelings. If you postpone until after Molin has had time to find someone and get engaged herself, then we'll reconsider. Mom got on the line to twist the knife deeper. Honey, this isn't what we wanted, but you're forcing our hand. We've talked to Molin, and she's heartbroken. She feels like you're stealing her thunder before she even has thunder to steal. Surely you can wait another year or two. What's the rush? The rush. I was 32 years old. I'd been with David for 2 years. We were ready to build our life together. But in my parents' world, my timeline meant nothing compared to protecting their golden child's ego. They actually thought I would cave. After 32 years of putting Molin first, they expected me to sacrifice my wedding day for the possibility that she might someday find a boyfriend. But here's what they didn't count on. I'd already sent save the dates. The venue was booked. David's family had made travel arrangements. I wasn't backing down, and we kept moving forward with our plans. Every vendor meeting, every dress fitting, every decision we made without my parents felt like a small act of rebellion. David's mom stepped in to help with things my mom should have been doing. His sister offered to throw my bachelorette party. It was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Meanwhile, the rest of our family started noticing the obvious. My cousin Sarah called, asking why my mom wasn't posting engagement photos on Facebook like she did when our cousin Emma got engaged. My Aunt Maria asked why she hadn't heard anything about wedding planning when we talked at Easter. Uncle Tom mentioned that Dad seemed weird when Tom brought up giving a speech at the reception. Other family members started asking questions. At first, I tried to cover for my parents. Oh, they're just busy with work. They're letting us handle the planning ourselves. But the questions kept coming, and my excuses got thinner. Aunt Maria cornered me after Easter dinner and asked point blank, "Rebecca, are your parents coming to your wedding?" I could have lied. I could have protected their image and kept the family peace. Instead, I told her the truth. They're upset that I'm getting married before Molin. They think it's disrespectful to family tradition. Aunt Maria stared at me for a long moment. Then she said something that made me realize I wasn't crazy. "Rebecca, that's not a tradition. That's just favoritism with a fancy name." Word travels fast in families, especially when that word involves parents skipping their daughter's wedding for such a petty reason. Within 2 weeks, I'd gotten calls from 4 different relatives, expressing their concern and frankly their disgust at my parents' behavior. Aunt Maria said something that made me realize I wasn't alone in seeing the pattern. June 15th arrived and my parents kept their promise. Those 2 empty chairs in the front row spoke louder than any words could have. David's uncle walked me down the aisle while his mother sat in the mother of the bride seat, dabbing her eyes with pride. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. David's family, who'd known me for 2 years, showed up for me while my own parents, who'd known me for 32 years, chose to stay home. Our guests noticed. How could they not? Aunt Maria kept glancing at the empty chairs during the ceremony. Uncle Tom asked David's father point blank where my parents were during the cocktail hour. My cousins Sarah and Emma spent half the reception asking other family members if they knew what was going on, but their absence spoke louder than any presence could have. Everyone now knew exactly what kind of parents would skip their daughter's wedding over something so petty. 2 weeks after our honeymoon, David came home from the gym with a strange look on his face. He'd gone for a run through our neighborhood and decided to stop by the coffee shop on 5th Street to grab us drinks. While he was waiting in line, he overheard a phone conversation that changed everything. My dad was sitting at a corner table talking loudly enough that half the cafe could hear him. "Molin, sweetie, I know this is hard, but Rebecca made her choice. Now we need to focus on making sure your day is perfect." David moved closer, pretending to check his phone. "Don't worry about what happened at Rebecca's wedding. The family members who matter will understand when they see how special your celebration is. We'll make sure everyone knows you're the daughter who really deserves their attention." David heard something that changed everything. My father was already planning Molin's wedding damage control before she was even engaged. But the real evidence started rolling in through text messages. 3 weeks after our wedding, Molin began texting David directly. Not me, David. She was trying to get him to convince me to make peace with the family before her big announcement. Screenshot 1. "Hey, David. Hope married life is treating you well. I was thinking maybe you could help Rebecca see that family harmony is more important than holding grudges." Screenshot 2 sent the same day. "I know my parents' absence hurt, but they were just trying to protect family traditions. Now that you guys are married, maybe it's time to move past this. I'd hate for old drama to ruin my special moment." And then came Screenshot 3, the one that showed exactly who my perfect sister really was. "Between you and me. Rebecca has always been a bit dramatic about family stuff. She takes things too personally. I'm hoping you can help her be more mature about this situation. My engagement announcement is coming soon, and I need the family united for my big day." The texts showed exactly who my perfect sister really was. A manipulator who saw my husband as a tool to get what she wanted, and who was already planning to weaponize my hurt feelings for her own benefit. But the cherry on top came in the form of a massive manila envelope delivered to our door on a Tuesday afternoon in September. Inside were the most elaborate wedding invitations I'd ever seen. Thick cardstock with gold foil lettering tissue paper inserts multiple cards for different events and a wax seal with her initials. The invitation was addressed to Mr. and Ms. David Chen. They'd finally acknowledged our marriage when they needed something from us. The invitation detailed a 3-day wedding weekend at a luxury resort 2 hours outside the city. Welcome. Cocktails on Friday. Rehearsal dinner on Saturday, wedding ceremony, and reception on Sunday, followed by a farewell brunch on Monday. The dress code was black tie optional. For the welcome event, formal cocktail attire. For the rehearsal dinner, and formal evening wear for the actual wedding. She'd registered at 3 different high-end stores and included a note about how presence is the only present we need, but if you feel moved to contribute to our future, we've made some suggestions. This wasn't just a wedding invitation. It was a dissertation on how much better than me she was, how much more sophisticated, how much more worthy of celebration and attention. She expected everyone to show up for her perfect day, to spend hundreds of dollars on outfits and gifts to celebrate her love story, while my own parents had literally refused to witness mine. She expected everyone to show up for her perfect day. The family phone calls started almost immediately after Molin's. Invitations went out. Aunt Maria was first. "Rebecca, honey, I got Molin's invitation and I have to ask. After what your parents did to you, they really expect us all to show up and celebrate like nothing happened." Her voice was tight with anger I'd rarely heard from her. "Your mother called me yesterday asking if we'd RSVP'd yet, and I told her I needed to think about it. 24 years I've been in this family, and I've never seen anything like what they did to you." Uncle Tom called that evening. "Beck, I've been thinking about this for months now, and I can't get past it. Your dad asked me to give a speech at Molin's rehearsal dinner, like I'm supposed to forget that he couldn't even bother to show up to your wedding." His voice got rougher. "I told him I'd think about it, but honestly, I don't think I can stand up there and celebrate their family values when they threw their own daughter away for such a stupid reason." My cousin Sarah was more blunt. "Rebecca, I'm not going. I can't look your parents in the face and pretend they didn't humiliate you in front of 300 people. Emma feels the same way. We're supposed to celebrate love and family, while they literally abandoned their own daughter on her wedding day. No way." One by one, they started seeing the pattern. And once people started talking, the stories came flooding out. Aunt Maria told me about my high school graduation, how my parents spent the entire party talking about Molin's latest academic achievement instead of celebrating my accomplishments. Uncle Tom remembered the Christmas when I announced my promotion to senior developer. My parents changed the subject to discuss Molin's work bonus within 5 minutes. Sarah brought up my college graduation party that got turned into Molin's presentation practice session. Emma mentioned how my parents had never once asked about my relationship with David until after he proposed. But they'd spent hours analyzing every boyfriend Molin had ever brought home. They all had stories I'd never heard, moments when my parents' favoritism was so obvious that other family members noticed and felt uncomfortable. "I always wondered why you seemed so quiet at family gatherings," Aunt Maria said. "Now I realize you'd learned there was no point in speaking up." The validation was overwhelming. For 32 years, I'd thought maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe it was normal for parents to have favorites. But hearing my extended family confirm what I'd experienced my whole life, it changed everything. That's when David and I had the conversation that would determine everything moving forward. He sat me down and asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Rebecca, what do you want to do about Molin's wedding? Do we go and pretend everything's fine, or do we finally stop protecting your parents' image?" I thought about all those years of covering for them, making excuses, protecting their reputation as the perfect parents with the perfect family. I thought about that phone conversation David overheard, where Dad was already planning damage control for Molin's wedding. I thought about Molin's manipulative texts, trying to use my husband against me. I decided to stop protecting their ideal family image. The family gathering happened at my grandmother's 80th birthday party in October, 2 months before Molin's December wedding. Everyone was there, all the aunts, uncles, cousins, their kids. The kind of big family event where news spreads like wildfire and nothing stays secret. Grandma's house was packed, and the conversation was flowing as freely as the wine. I was helping in the kitchen when I heard Aunt Maria's voice carry from the living room. "So Molin December's coming up fast. Are you excited about the wedding?" I froze with a casserole dish in my hands. This was it. The moment where everything would come out in the open, in front of everyone who mattered. Molin launched into her usual speech about the venue, the flowers, how perfect everything was going to be. She was glowing, completely confident that she was the center of everyone's universe, just like always. That's when Aunt Maria asked the question that changed everything, and I assume the whole family will be there. After everything that happened with Rebecca's wedding, I'm curious how you expect everyone to feel about celebrating with your parents." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Molin's face shifted from glowing bride-to-be to confused panic in about 3 seconds. That's when Uncle Tom spoke up from his chair by the fireplace. "Actually, Maria, since you brought it up, Linda and I won't be attending." He looked directly at my parents, who were suddenly very interested in their coffee cups. "We can't celebrate a family that abandons one daughter for the other. What you did to Rebecca was unforgivable." Aunt Maria nodded. "We won't be there either. I've been thinking about it for months, and I can't look past what happened. Rebecca is our family too, and what you did to her was cruel." My cousin Sarah jumped in. "Emma and I talked about it. We're out too. We can't pretend this is okay." The domino effect was swift and brutal. One by one, family members who had been quietly disgusted by my parents' behavior for months finally spoke up in public. Uncle Jim. "Count us out." Cousin Mike. "Sorry, Molin, but we're with Rebecca on this one." Aunt Susan. "I'm not comfortable attending after what happened." But Uncle Tom said what everyone was thinking. "You humiliated your own daughter in front of 300 people because she wouldn't put her life on hold for her sister's feelings. That's not family values. That's favoritism with a fancy name." The mass boycott was revealed, and it was devastating. Dad's face turned red, and he stood up, his voice shaking with anger. "This is ridiculous. You're all overreacting to a simple family disagreement. Rebecca chose to be vindictive and hold grudges instead of understanding the bigger picture." He pointed a finger at me across the room. "This is exactly the kind of selfish behavior we were trying to prevent." Mom jumped in with the gaslighting I'd heard my entire life. Rebecca has always been dramatic about family situations. She takes everything personally and makes herself the victim. We were trying to preserve family harmony, and she turned it into some kind of persecution complex. Her voice got higher, more desperate. "You're all letting her manipulate you into taking sides when there shouldn't be sides at all." But this time, the family wasn't buying it. Aunt Maria's voice cut through the room like a knife. "Linda, I've watched you treat these girls differently for years. We all have. And we've stayed quiet because it wasn't our place. But skipping Rebecca's wedding, that crossed a line none of us can ignore." Dad called me vindictive in front of everyone. He actually stood there and blamed me for dividing the family when all I'd done was get married on the date I chose. That's when Molin finally realized what was happening. The golden child who'd never faced consequences for anything in her life suddenly understood that her dream wedding was falling apart in real time. "Wait, what do you mean you're not coming?" Her voice cracked. "This is my wedding. You have to be there." When Uncle Tom gently explained that they couldn't support the family dynamic that led to my wedding day. Abandonment. Molin lost it completely, but I didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about me. This is about Rebecca being petty. She's ruining my wedding because she can't let go of her hurt feelings. The irony was beautiful. For the first time in her life, my perfect sister wasn't getting exactly what she wanted, and she had no idea how to handle it. She started crying, then yelling, demanding to know how they could punish her for our parents' decision. The golden child mask slipped completely, and everyone saw the entitled, manipulative person underneath. For the first time, Molin wasn't perfect in front of everyone. Molin's December wedding happened exactly as planned, at the luxury resort, with the black-tie dress codes, with the elaborate 3-day celebration she'd dreamed of. The only problem, half the guest list didn't show up. What was supposed to be a celebration for 150 people turned into an intimate gathering of about 75. The ballroom that looked perfect for 150 felt cavernous and empty with half that number. My parents spent the entire weekend making excuses to the vendors and the remaining guests. Oh, you know how it is with winter travel. Some people had last-minute conflicts. We decided to keep it more intimate. But everyone knew what had really happened. The family had spoken, and they'd chosen integrity over image. Molan got her perfect dress, her perfect flowers, her perfect venue, and the small wedding she never wanted. The aftermath was swift and final. My parents tried reaching out a few times in the months that followed awkward phone calls, where they attempted to rebuild bridges without actually acknowledging what they'd done wrong. Mom would say things like, "Maybe we can all move past this," and "Family is more important than holding grudges," but they never apologized. They never admitted that skipping my wedding was wrong. They just wanted me to forget it happened and go back to being their backup daughter. Instead, I built something better. The extended family members who boycotted Molan's wedding became my real family support system. Aunt Maria and I have dinner once a month. Uncle Tom helped David and me with home renovations. My cousins include us in their kids' birthday parties and holiday celebrations. I found my people, the ones who saw my worth even when my own parents couldn't. David and I are building our life exactly as we want it, without asking permission or seeking approval from people who will never give it. I set clear boundaries. No more family events with my parents. No more pretending their behavior was acceptable. No more protecting their image at my own expense. I finally learned that I would never be sufficient for them, and that was okay. Their loss became my freedom, and honestly, I've never been happier.